My first guest for season 2 is Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, who also happened to be my very first guest on the Life Unscripted podcast. And of course, we have a lot to discuss regarding Operation Metro Surge. Now, a lot has happened since I've sat down and we recorded that podcast. And I think it's important to put into context what has happened since then. So, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara has now resigned, and that was at the urging of Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. This was after an investigation into sexual misconduct charges and also deleting evidence. So that I felt was important to put ahead of this podcast. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be back again.
Yeah, so it's hard to believe.
Am I the first repeat?
You are.
Look at that.
The first repeat. I really appreciate you being here for my anniversary podcast. Yes. It feels great. What a year it's been. Anything going on in the city?
It'd be nice if we got some normalcy for a little bit here, but obviously Minneapolis has been through it. The way that the city showed up collectively has been nothing short of inspirational, though.
Yeah, it's really been astounding to see what's happened. We know so much has happened, and you've had time for reflection the year back, but how would you describe the past year?
Well, if you consider everything that has happened in the past year, we had the assassination of Melissa Hortman. We had the tragic shooting at Annunciation. We had Operation Metro Surge. I'm sure there were 2 or 3 other crises that I'm drawing a blank on right now, but our city has been through it. What's been remarkable throughout is the way that everybody has showed up for one another. That is the common thread, is that this concept of neighboring, of standing up for people regardless of their background, where they're from, the zip code where they were born, just this understanding that we're a collective family and we love each other. That has been a constant thread throughout all of it. So even when the worst of the worst happens, you have the best of the best that Minneapolis and Minnesota residents are showing.
So as I mentioned, you were here a year ago, and this was before Operation Metro Surge. But we did discuss the possibility of that happening. And right now I'm just going to play a little segment of that part of the interview. Mm-hmm. A lot of immigrants are concerned about, for instance, the idea that ICE can come here to this city and essentially take them away with no due process and kick them out of the country. And so to protect the immigrants here, you're saying, okay, so it's not a priority for Minneapolis, but how would you deal with something like that, ICE coming in?
We don't deal with ICE coming in. We don't coordinate with ICE in that fashion. And so, look, I'm not someone who's going to overpromise and underdeliver. I understand the concern about ICE coming in and taking somebody without due process. So to the extent there is that concern, I get it. And you got a team here in the city of Minneapolis that loves you and that'll work with you. In Minneapolis, it's not like illegal aliens. These are our neighbors. We love them. We're going to stand with them. We'll stand up for them. And again, we have a prioritization as to what we're dealing with. And where we're going to contribute our resources is not immigration. That's just not our deal.
In listening back, I mean, it ended up being
exactly
your deal, our deal. When you hear that and where you were at last year, what do you think about our conversation last year and knowing that this hadn't happened yet?
What I said was accurate and remained accurate throughout, which is that we do not enforce federal immigration law. We will not cooperate with ICE in any fashion when it comes to immigration enforcement. That is not our deal. Now, what is our deal is having to respond to it when ICE comes to town. We do everything possible to keep people safe. We try to get people food. And when you have people sheltering in place, terrified to go outside, to even go to the grocery store, What we need to do for the safety of our residents is stand up for them. And that means, having community service officers drop off food for those that are terrified to go outside. It means creating a task force that we did in fact set up so that people are able to both disseminate information to the city so that we know what's happening in real time. And we're also able to provide information to them so that we're able to keep them safe during the most horrific of times. What we saw was people really coming together. What we saw was residents standing up by the tens of thousands to peacefully protest or to stand watch outside of a daycare. We saw our Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs at the city helping to coordinate measures that would keep people safe wherever we could. And we saw our police abiding by our separation ordinance, which means, as I said back then, we do not work with federal immigration enforcement.
The day you told ICE to get the F out of here, you were pretty fired up.
Yeah. Minutes before that press conference, I had watched the video of what took place. And what I saw was a woman in Renee Good that was trying to get out of there. She was trying to leave. Not trying to injure or hurt somebody, certainly not trying to kill them. She was trying to leave. Seconds before I went out there, I understood that, I don't remember if it was Christy Nome or someone else saying that the ICE agent was acting purely in self-defense. Shortly thereafter, they were calling Renee Good a domestic terrorist. And so, I was pissed off. I was angry. And that message in get the F out of here was not just a message to the federal government. It was also a message to our constituents because they were rightfully furious and that they need to know that there is a government in their local city government that is on their side. If they don't know that, then it's all the more infuriating. And we had an obligation here to, yes, of course, do everything possible to help our neighbors. And simultaneously, we could not give the federal government the bait that they were looking for. We can't take the bait.
Some of the criticism is that people out there felt that the city MPD didn't do enough to rein in ICE, that they were not protecting citizens. And what is the law regarding local officers responding to ICE agents using excessive force? I don't even think we know that. What is the law?
Well, the law, of course, is that you can't use excessive force. And at the same time, it's important to understand the context here. There were 3,000 to 4,000 ICE agents in our city. We had 600 police officers. So again, 3,000 to 4,000 on one side, 600 on the other, and those 600 are not tasked only with defending the city against ICE. They're tasked with responding to 911 calls and investigating crimes and dealing with issues of domestic violence. This is what they do on a day-to-day basis, and there were moments when we may have only had 30-some officers throughout the city on duty. And one, you got to have an officer that is there on the spot when some form of use of force that is beyond what is appropriate takes place. Two, they got to see it. Three, they got to understand it as unlawful. And then finally, they've got to have the numbers to arrest someone, in some cases, by force. And so it's important to just call out what that would have looked like if we had MPD by force arresting ICE agents. There could be a gunfight in the streets. We would be endangering the very people that we purport to want to protect. And you're not winning a gunfight with the federal government. Not to mention, Donald Trump was hoping that something like that took place. And we couldn't take the bait. If something like that did take place, then we would have been openly and possibly giving him the grounds to invoke the Insurrection Act. If he invokes the Insurrection Act, then that allows him to take those 1,800 troops that were present and stationed in Alaska and bring them into the streets of Minneapolis. We're not talking about ICE agents. We're not talking about Border Patrol. Military 1,800 military into the streets. And so, look, so far there's not a city in the country that has done that, and rightfully so, because we got to be fighting on the battlegrounds that we know we can win and that are strategic. And that is the battlefield of the court system, which is where we are fighting and where we can win. Speaking of the president,
he's gone after you. Yeah. You're not the only one, but on a scale of 1 to 10, as far as being concerned about, him continuing attacks against you, where are you at?
Look, we're not backing down. Is it a concern? Of course it is, because when Donald Trump attacks anybody directly, not just me, you get subjected to a swarm of death threats. And just one of those needs to be legitimate in order for a life-changing or life-ending event to take place. Not to mention, and we didn't even talk about this yet, they're weaponizing the Department of Justice against me and other elected officials. They're using the very department that is supposed to push for law and order and having them violate the Constitution to go after political opponents and achieve some form of political retribution. You don't need to take my word for it that that's what they're doing. They're literally saying it out loud. They're saying this will be political retribution and we're coming for you. And while they have no case, the facts are not on their side, the lawyers are not on their side. It is disconcerting, of course, when you have the federal government that's going after you and the largest, most significant law firm in the form of the Department of Justice in the country.
Is there any idea how many people have actually been taken by ICE and what their status is? I'm assuming there hasn't been transparency there, but do we know here, just for instance, in Minneapolis, what that number is?
We don't know, and it's awful that we don't. They won't tell us. We do not know exactly what they're doing and whether there's legitimacy to it. We know anecdotally, certainly, that people have been taken away that are United States citizens. People have been taken away that have done nothing wrong. We have an employee at the city who had been taken. He'd worked at the city for 30 years, making sure that the water that comes out of the faucet is clean. This person is here, cares deeply about the city, and is a patriot, yet he's being taken away. Potentially going to a country where he doesn't even really speak the language that well. This is not benefiting anyone. They said it was about safety. This has nothing to do with safety. This had nothing to do with immigration. This is about creating a political narrative vis-a-vis a Democratic mayor in a Democratic state and trying to show chaos. And so a big part of what we were saying is let's not counter Donald Trump's chaos with our own brand of it. That's what they want.
Considering how many people showed up, for instance, at the protests and responded to their neighbors, the protests were peaceful. They were, for the most part, yes, they were. They were. And people were showing what they were doing. Really, what helped in highlighting that or the transparency came from people using their cameras, using their phones, and actually, and that is something that I know the governor and you probably said,
absolutely,
go ahead,
do it. It's in public. That there's no expectation of privacy when you're on the sidewalk on a public street. We wanted people to be videotaping what was going on. Otherwise, let's be real, we would all be living a lie right now and following the narrative that the federal government was pushing out, which was complete garbage. It wasn't true. If you looked at every single one of the shootings that took place, just as examples, every one of them, they said things that were blatantly false.
We are going to take a quick break on Life Unscripted, and we'll be right back. One way to elevate your look is by a pair of great eyeglasses. And I have a lot of them. I have prescription eyeglasses. I have sunglasses. Why? Well, because, I need to see, and also to protect my eyes from the bright sunshine. And I have found some very stylish eyewear from Aquila. Here they have eco-friendly frames, so many different colors. We've got classic black, and they are affordable. They're made in LA, but they're not just for movie stars. And I have a great deal for you. For all of my listeners, just use the promo code AKLIFE and you will get 10% off. 10% off of any of the frames there at aquila.la. You can also find the deal on my show notes. Just click on that link and you get 10% off of Aquila Eyewear. Hey, I want to tell you about a product that I absolutely love. They are my Cozy Earth pajamas. They are just soft and buttery, and I can't tell you, I would actually prefer to wear them all day long. Now, I've arranged a fantastic discount for my listeners of Life Unscripted. Enter promo code AKLIFE for 21% off any product you purchase at Cozy Earth. Once again, that's 21% off. Go to CozyEarth.com and use promo code AKLIFE, and let's get cozy. When Springsteen came out with the song, The Streets of Minneapolis, that was crazy. Mm-hmm. Did you meet him?
I did, briefly, yeah. He's an incredible guy. He looks fabulous, by the way, for his age, for any age. He got out there and rocked all night long without barely even taking a breather.
Yeah. I've been to a few Springsteen's concerts, and he definitely has staying power. It's really incredible.
Big time.
But to hear him, create the song so quickly, and it, the whole city and really the country embraced that song.
Clearly, Bruce Springsteen was inspired by the people of Minneapolis, and in that sense, he's not unique. He is unique that he can pump out a song that quickly that is that exceptional, but not unique in the inspiration he felt. I felt the same thing. The people of this city are heroes. They're patriots. They were standing up for the underpinnings of our democracy and the endurance of our republic. And that's what everybody should be doing, regardless of ideological or partisan background.
You have recently nominated for a second term Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara. Why do you think he deserves another term?
Because he's doing a great job. We've made a ton of progress. Look where we were just a few years ago. Crime was dramatically up. Now it is significantly down. We were hemorrhaging officers from our police department. One of the things that kept me up at night is that we would reach this point of no return and not have enough police officers to do the basic responsibilities of responding to 911 calls and investigating crime. In other words, we kind of wouldn't have a police department. Now we've seen a 200% increase in applications coming in to become a police officer. We bottomed out at around 550 officers then. Now we're up at 640. We anticipate to getting the charter mandated minimum by late next year. So we're making huge progress there. And the police department is the most diverse it's ever been in our city's history. So the people that are coming on and those that choose to stay, they want to be part of the change. Change that, by the way, people recognized when Operation Metro Surge was taking place. I mean, they saw the way that police officers from the MPD were treating them versus the way that ICE agents and Border Patrol were treating them. Granted, that's a very low bar.
So, give or take, we have 642 police officers now, and you want over 800. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's possible?
Of course it's possible. We've had over 800 before. Before George Floyd's murder, we had somewhere in the range of 888 officers. We hemorrhaged 500 police officers from the force following, the push to defund the police and all of the issues that took place in the intervening years. And so, yes, we absolutely can get back to there. And by the way, we have fewer officers per capita than almost any major city in the entire country. We're either last, second to last, or third to last, depending on which data point you look at. It is a problem because we should want officers to be engaging with the community and building out relationships. They don't have the time to do that if they're simply running from 911 call to 911 call. We also want them to be properly investigating crime, which takes time. Third thing is we don't want officers to be so tired that they make a dumb decision during a split-second interaction that then costs somebody's life. So having fresh officers that are there to do the job, where you're not spending on overtime, that's what helps, and that's where we want to get to.
So this will be a closely watched confirmation process. Are you confident?
I'm hopeful. I mean, in addition to crime being down, officer recruitment being up, the reforms that are taking place under our consent decree, they're very real. Transformation is afoot, and I know that Chief O'Hara is very serious about it. I'm not going to speak for council members as to how they're ultimately going to vote.
Some people are frustrated with the pace of reform.
Count me in with them. I mean, that's always the case, though. Count me in there being frustrated with the pace of driving down crime, or the pace of reform, or the pace of getting more affordable housing. You should always want more. And simultaneously, you can recognize that great progress has taken place. You won't find a mayor in the entire country that isn't frustrated by not getting something done faster.
There was a Star Tribune article, and in that, you said if council does not support this nomination, they need to be very clear-eyed about the consequences. What did you mean by that?
The consequences of neither having a confirmed police chief or a confirmed commissioner. They've also voted down the commissioner. The consequences of taking perhaps over a year in running a search, getting a police chief, getting them nominated, confirmed, sworn in, and then having them get up to speed with all the different dynamics of being chief, or if they're not from here, a new city. So, the progress would be stunted. I mean, we're going to do everything possible to make sure that they come in, and we're going to give them an on-ramp, of course, if that's the direction they go. But I'm telling you, that would be it would be irresponsible.
Let's move on to talk about some of your key priorities. I know expanding affordable housing is, up there, on the top of the list. What exactly do you want to do with that?
Yeah, oftentimes you hear from politicians that are coming in that they're a jack of all trades and they care about everything. The truth is, when you come into politics, when you enter public service, usually you're passionate about a couple of things. My passion was housing. My passion was deeply affordable housing, specifically affordable housing in middle and upper income neighborhoods. And while we've made massive progress, we are the leading affordable housing city in the country in terms of the way that we are passing policy and increasing the number of units that are affordable. I mean, we're producing 5 times the amount of deeply affordable homes since before I took office. There's one thing where we have not done a good enough job yet, and that is making sure that the affordable housing is throughout the city. We now allow for, based on our 2040 plan, affordable homes to go up in middle and upper income neighborhoods. But just allowing for them is the first step. The next step is actually making it happen. And it's hard. So in our defense, it is hard. But that is a difficulty worth leaning into, because I want to see, and I believe in beautifully diverse neighborhoods with every socioeconomic background and race, where kids grow up on the block and they see the potential right there in front of them. You want to be a teacher, well, you got a teacher on the block. A doctor, one of them's on the block. A lawyer, one of them's on the block. A firefighter, you got a firefighter on the block. And having all of them on the block at that same time gives you sort of an idea of, hey, I can do it. I can be that. And that's what we want to create.
You have been criticized for repeatedly vetoing the city council's efforts to extend the pre-eviction notice periods for all of those people who were affected by Operation Metro Surge. Why do you keep vetoing that?
Because we tried the whole eviction moratorium thing before, and it didn't work. Back in 2020 and 2021, I believe, I supported an eviction moratorium quite adamantly and vocally. We did it. We put it in place. Guess what happened? More people got evicted. And so I'm not the kind of person that will go with what sounds good only to have, to avoid the criticism. I want to go with what actually does good. And eviction moratoriums, which is essentially what the goal was here, they had pushed for an eviction moratorium and then pushed for an extension of the notice period. what ends up happening is that people get into more debt that they're unable to crawl out of. And then as soon as that moratorium or notice period is lifted, they then got to pay it off. And oftentimes they can't. Then more people ultimately get evicted. And so again,
a vicious cycle, you're saying.
It's a vicious cycle. And, you don't need to take my word for it. Talk to the shelter providers, because they were against this on the whole. Talk to the deeply affordable housing providers. They were also against it. And it wasn't just for their health. They were against it because they saw the repercussions of what happened back in 2020 when, again, more people got evicted. So I would say to people, have the courage to also say what might not be politically popular in the moment, but is the right thing to do.
Okay, so you want more affordable housing, and then also, I know building the police force is important, and we discussed that briefly. What else would you say is on that top 3 list?
We got to bring the city back. And before we do that, also, I know you're meeting with Mayor Herr tomorrow. She had the same position as me as well. She understood that this was problematic for the city of St. Paul. Oftentimes when you're an executive, you have to take positions that are beyond just a simple yes or a no. You see the full vantage point and the perspective. And being able to talk to all of these different providers, you recognize that the city is an ecosystem, and navigating the city through that requires some bravery. And, I think she had it as well. You asked about other issues. A big one is just bringing the city back, economic development and opportunity, jobs and new businesses. Business can't be a 4-letter word in Minneapolis. It's got to be something that is embraced because, one, business adds jobs. It adds life to the streets and activity. Businesses pay taxes. And we need them in these buildings, especially those that are vacant or underutilized. And we've got to be looking at them not just as partners in revenue, but as partners in conclusion or work. And that's what's got to take place here.
All right, another break here on Life Unscripted, and we'll get back and talk about what you have learned in the past year.
Okay.
I have a brand new skincare product that I want to talk to you about, and it's from Lavindus, and it even has pretty little packaging. I just got back from Arizona where the sun and the heat and the dry air really did a number on my skin, and I always think that serum is the best way to go when it comes to nourishing your skin. And this one is from, you can see, Lavindus Amrutini. Isn't it a pretty little bottle? And it's Luminosity Dewdrop Serum, and it is, what's really wonderful about this is it smells really light and fresh. It's not, as heavy perfumes. You just put a little bit of this on, just kind of dab it on after you, of course, cleanse. And it just makes your skin feel nice and dewy. And we want that, right? It's springtime. And by the way, you can get 21% off if you use the code AKLIFE. Yes, 21% off, Lavindus.com. You'll see the deal. Go to my show notes and get your skin ready for spring. Do you ever have an energy drink and you realize, oh, that's a little bit too much caffeine? Well, here's an idea for you. Aspire. Aspire energy drinks are so yummy. In fact, this one is mango lemonade, and it's delicious. Half the caffeine, and it also has green tea, a lot of great flavors, and I've arranged a great listener discount for you, 20% off if you use the promo code AKLIFE. So 20% off of these Aspire drinks at aspiredrinks.com. You will love feeling inspired with Aspire. So here we are, a year in. Looking back, what would you say, is there one thing that stands out that you have learned in this process of being a mayor of a city that has gone through so much?
Look, I learn things every single day. There are lessons that I've learned that have made me a better mayor and a better leader, better person. I use those lessons every single day. This goes back to the murder of George Floyd and the subsequent unrest, a global pandemic, a city budget crisis where we had to pass 5 budgets in the time you would normally pass, a couple. So you take tons of lessons from all of that. And I was able to use that experience through crises like the mass shooting at Annunciation.
Yeah, I lived down the block from there, and unfortunately could hear them from my house.
Yes.
And the response in the community there was also
Incredible.
really incredible.
It was. Response in the community, and I'll give some credit to the response to our city and the police officers that ran towards that danger. They were there in, as I recall, 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Within, I think, 20 minutes, they had every single kid on an ambulance. They busted through the door. They were looking for a second potential shooter at the same time. They were wrapping a kid with gauze. They were instructing somebody how to fill a gaping wound at the same time. They were looking for, again, potential suspects. It was a scary time. And one of the pieces that I recommend to other mayors that have not been through substantial crisis, and even if they have been through it, the importance of emergency management training and preparation. We went through it. And we didn't just sit on our hands following the murder of George Floyd and the subsequent unrest. We ran trainings and simulations. We did national incident management trainings, all culminating in a trip out to Emmitsburg, Maryland, which is where FEMA has their simulation headquarters. And we practiced, and we got better. We make sure that we have the right communication systems and channels that are in place. We made sure that the right hand knows what the left hand is doing, and that helped a lot with emergency management. And I give the credit to the incredible city employees that we've got and the staff that led through these incredibly difficult circumstances. So I think that's a lesson learned, not just over the last year, but over the last several.
I can't imagine the kind of pressure that you have faced, not only in the city, across the country, and even, the focus truly all across the globe. It must be exhausting. Do you ever think, I should have been an accountant? I'd have a job that was just so less stressful. And I mean, it really is. I can't imagine, especially in the days following. And George Floyd and, of course, Operation Metro Surge. What is that like to be a mayor of this city that has had such a huge spotlight on us this year?
First, let me say the obvious, which is it is inspiring to be the mayor of a city that stood up like Minneapolis did. It is inspiring to see these neighbors out fully protecting themselves, putting their life, their bodies at times even on the line to make sure that the truth gets out there, that information is recorded, and that neighbors who we care about and love are protected. In Minneapolis, we don't think of them just as immigrants. They're our banker, they're our insurance agent, they're the person that, sells us coffee. They're part of our daily lives. And we made sure that stays that way in many cases. And at the same time, it's hard. It's very hard. I mean, I remember there was a Saturday morning during Operation Metro Surge, and it was the first few hours that I had had off in weeks. It was a Saturday morning. We had gotten through a difficult Friday night, and I was thinking, all right, I can take just a tiny bit of a breather and take my daughter into dance class over on the north side. And I got in my car at the time without security, drove up to the north side, and we're joking and laughing and telling stupid, potty jokes the whole way up there. And got up there, and 10 minutes into the dance class, I got a call from the chief of police, and it was Alix Kendall, and he'd been killed. And I felt so guilty about talking to this other parent that I knew, and I said, I'm so sorry, but can you please take my daughter? I'm going to have to leave right now. And she said, yes, of course, and very gracious about it. And I felt like the worst dad ever, just leaving my kid at dance class. Hadn't even really interacted with her all that much over the previous several weeks. And here I am leaving again. And I felt really guilty about it until a few days later I was talking to her and she said, hey, Dad, can we do that thing again next Saturday where you take me into dance class, we have a great time, and then I get to go home with her friend? She had a ball.
Yeah. Oh,
she had a great time. But, I left that dance class. I hustled home as quick as I could, put a suit on. Security picked me up, and We were
doing your
executing
job.
an emergency management plan. And so that's hard. Stuff like that is hard because, in addition to being mayor, people often forget I'm also a human being, and I'm a father, and I'm a husband. And you have
Yeah, when you were here last time, you had, your one daughter that was you took to dance class, and then one on the way. So now you have two.
now I have two.
And what is your biggest concern now for their future, would you say?
I'm like any parent. I want them to be happy. I want them to find whatever it is that they do best and love to benefit society the most. I want them to have opportunities in their life. That's not unique to me. That's any dad or mom in the world. They want that for their kids. I do have a concern also about this increasing polarization, this gravitational pull towards the extremes, this world where people have a hard time disagreeing and still having a conversation. Based on how our society is operating, especially with social media, you get very bubbled in and you think the whole world thinks exactly the way that you think. And as soon as you're confronted with a differing position, your first reaction is, well, maybe they're evil because of it, rather than actually listening to them and maybe understanding where they're coming from.
Well, in fact, I had two people representing an organization called Braver Angels on, and this is where somebody from the blue side, somebody from the red side get together, and they agree. They have like 10 agreements before they sit down, and there are chapters all across the United States.
I love that.
And I was spurred on by that from a conversation I had with somebody on a plane, and we had very different views politically, but we talked the entire time politics for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And honestly, I felt very optimistic afterward.
Yeah.
We were able to get into a lot of different subjects. I know I've mentioned this on the podcast before, that were surprising, including gun control. And this was somebody who was conservative, but we really had a good conversation. And the people who were around us on the plane were, I think, very interested too. And it wasn't performative, it just was an organic conversation, but that felt really good. Being a politician in general is difficult enough, but it's harder if you are of the Jewish faith. And we know all, of course, the rise in anti-Semitism, that is like an additional burden on you. What does that feel like?
Awful sometimes. I'm proud to be a Jew. I'm proud of our heritage, our ethnicity, and it is an ethnicity. If you look at my blood, it shows up there in the DNA. I'm proud of the contributions that Jews throughout history have provided the world. And yes, especially over the last 3 or 4 years here, anti-Semitism has gone through the roof. You carry around with you not just an obligation to be a husband and a father and a mayor and a runner, but also as a Jew. I mean, up until a few years ago, being a Jew was not really at the top of the list in terms of the way that I characterized myself. Now it's definitely climbed the charts. Why? Because that's how many people look at me, and then they assume certain positions that I have based on my ethnicity and my background. They assume oftentimes that I'm part of some, global cabal or Illuminati that is either controlling the financial system or the world, and that I've got some sort of string attached to my hand that dictates how Israel even runs their politics and government. It's horribly anti-Semitic what I've seen. And what I tell Jews, especially young Jews that are in college, is stand tall. Kick your shoulders back. Be proud of who you are. Don't back down. And you should be proud of your faith and your heritage. And, you got to stick up also for each other. just like, by the way, how we stick up for other people throughout the world that are being discriminated against.
Well, that's a good note to leave it on.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you being here for 1 year, a look back.
Yes.
And the challenges that you faced and all the ones ahead. I really appreciate you taking the time and being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for listening to Life Unscripted. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and write me a review. Let me know what you think of the podcast. And when you buy any of the products and use my promo code AKLIFE, I get paid. And you help support the podcast.